Welcome back to the TWSN YouTube channel. Another edition of Walk-Off Wednesday coming for you guys. We're about at the midway point of the MLB season, so we're going to be doing a little bit of a check-in, see where the standings are. And we're going to be identifying some buyers and sellers of the upcoming MLB trade deadline. Our trade deadline show will be next week, and then we'll have some reactions the following. But again, trade deadline is on August 2nd. We're just going to give, again, a little brief overview, check-in of the season while we got the All-Star break. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game. But yeah, let's just get right into it. We're going to start off in probably the best division in baseball, and that's the AL East. Again, not some of these teams are going to get more focused than others because at the top, the Yankees, we all know the Yankees are buying. Matt, what are some little bit of things you could kind of see them looking to kind of bolster their already star-studded roster?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees enter this All-Star break easily best record in baseball. They kind of do everything well. At least they have pitching, hitting, everything, power. So I don't think they need too much. But, they're the Yankees, so they're going to be linked to every possible star that's available, every possible big name that's available. There's rumors that they are interested in the Reds' Luis Castillo. I think he could easily bolster that starting rotation for them. Frankie Montas from the A's could potentially be a name to look out for them as well. And then obviously, the big domino from this weekend, Juan Soto.
Yeah.
The Yankees are more than likely going to make a big push for Juan Soto to pair him in the outfield with Aaron Judge. So I could easily see them doing that. It's the Yankees. They're gonna try to get better. They've had a long title drought, so I really see them being active buyers at this deadline.
Yeah, I think the same goes for Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Boston in the scenario. And I think they're all their strategies, I think, are pretty similar throughout. I think they all are going to be interested in another starting pitcher and then one more bat or position player. Tampa Bay, they could look at a bunch of different ways to upgrade in the lineup. Boston, Boston's going to be linked to the first baseman, Josh Bell, Christian Walker, a bunch of those. And then Toronto goes big or go home all the time. So you never know what they're going to do.
Toronto's another name to look out for in the Castillo.
Absolutely. This whole division needs pitching, and Luis Castillo or Frankie Montas will probably one of them, potentially even both of them could end up in this division when all said is done. But again, the same, like I said, same thing kind of goes for all three of those teams. But the one team I wanted to focus on a little bit here, and that's the Baltimore Orioles, currently sitting at the bottom of the division, 46-46, 3.5 games out of a wild card spot currently. Matt, what are you doing if you're Baltimore here? I mean, I know you're probably not full sending a buy. What's kind of approach you would take if you were the O's here?
So, we talked about this in our Juan Soto video that we did a couple days ago, and maybe they go after Juan Soto. I mean, they don't have anyone that they're paying big money to. Get a star player in there. Like, the Orioles are clearly competing, which is kind of a nice change of pace for them. But the one player that I'd be really interested as like sleepers in is Luis Castillo. Like, if you are the Baltimore Orioles, why not? You could use a guy to front your rotation, and he's not going to cost easily anywhere near as much as a Juan Soto would. So you get him. He's signed through next year. You could probably get an extension done with him, and you have him for the next, let's say, 4
You're not paying anybody else, really.
Exactly, and he is a bona fide star. He just shut the Yankees down the other night in Yankee Stadium.
6-0
the Yankees
innings.
playing the same division as Baltimore. So, I would love to see the Orioles go out and look at a guy like Castillo.
I think Baltimore will kind of have that hybrid buy-sell where they're going to come off of some prospects for some little bit of future security. I think pitching is probably where you see that, whether it's Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle, Pablo Lopez, some of those really good starters that have not just a couple months of control, but a couple months and all of next year. I think Baltimore needs a frontline starter relatively soon. They're competing. They're playing this good without an elite starter. So I think you can definitely see them being active in the market in that regard. So Baltimore's a fun team, up and coming. The division's phenomenal. Everybody's pretty much buying that division. We're going to move on to a little bit more of a trickier one. And that's the AL Central. You currently have the Twins. The rankings are in this order. Twins, Cleveland, White Sox, Detroit, Kansas City. A little bit of a hectic division here. who I think the Twins are obviously buying, but I think it kind of talk about Cleveland. Cleveland's a head scratcher here for you. Are you buying what Cleveland is doing right now? Do you think they'll end up being buyers, or do you think they'll kind of just float where they're at?
I think they're going to kind of do what you just talked about with Baltimore, where they kind of have that hybrid of, if the right deal is there, they buy. But I feel like they could also sell off some of their pieces to, maybe get more prospects to better themselves for an off-season deal or something. Like, I lean buyer if I had to pick more of a side. But Cleveland's interesting because, on one of our shows, I talked about Cleveland and how I was really high on this Cleveland team. And they've kind of been just treading water, so I'm going to lean buy for right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think they'll be out. I don't think they'll go make like any crazy moves. Like, I don't see them landing any of the big people. But if I think a guy that kind of comes to mind initially is a guy like Wilson Contreras. I think that, the price, he is the best catcher on the market. But the price tag can't be too high for a 30-year-old catcher for the year. And that's one of those moves where it's not going to break you prospect-wise. You're not going to need to give up any of your top guys. But it is something that can really push them over the top. And, they kind of need a little bit of a resurgence because, like you said, you were really high on them when we first started the show. But now the team like the White Sox, who were terrible when we had first started this show, are surging. They're finally looking like the team everybody thought they were. Do you think that continues up until the trade deadline and makes them some serious buyers?
I do, actually. Yeah, this Chicago team has started to play really good baseball. I mean, they're 7-3 over their last 10 games. I think they're going to be buyers here. I think they sense a little crack in that division. They're only 3 games back. For all the success that the Minnesota Twins have had this season, they're only 3 games up on the White Sox. Yeah. So look for the White Sox to be in full buy mode here.
Yeah, I like it. And the other 2 teams in the division, Detroit and Kansas City, obviously not buying. They both have better days ahead. They both have some interesting trade pieces. Kansas City with Benintendi. Detroit, maybe they come off Grossman and some of their relievers that they have that have been pretty solid. Michael Fulmer. A bunch of solid options there. So you can look for those guys to kind of give some people to buy from them. But again, kind of a top-heavy division there. We're going to move on to the AL West. Another little bit of an interesting division. At the top, obviously, Houston will be buying. Seattle is surging, currently on a 14-game win streak coming into the All-Star break. Seattle's buying, right? They're going for it, right? Team of destiny, man.
They have to make the playoffs, man. Like, they just have to. They were so close last year, gave the fans so much hope. Coming to this year, they were one of the favorites to, possibly win the division. So, I fully expect Seattle to be a buyer in the coming weeks.
What about the Texas Rangers? They are not the best currently. They've been playing better, a little bit better of late. They struggled down the stretch, but they got hot. This team is clearly capable of getting hot again with the roster they have. What kind of direction do you see them taking?
I see the Rangers standing pat at this point.
Yeah.
I don't see them buying, selling, unless a deal they just can't refuse kind of falls into their lap. Because at this point, this was never the year we all thought the Rangers were going to take that step into true competitors, to true competing for a championship. But they have that core in place with Seager, Simeon. They just need to improve the starting rotation. So maybe they go get a number 3 starter. Right? Yeah. I don't know. I just don't see them making too big of a splash.
I could see them surprising some people with a big move. We keep bringing them up, but a guy like Luis Castillo, who has team control for next year as well, where you kind of just get him in your building, but you're not really doing it for the sole purpose of this year. You're doing it so you have him for next year. Same thing with Tyler Mahle, Pablo Lopez. Those are some of the big starting pitchers that have next year on their team control. So I can see them kind of doing a move like that, to where again they're not really if they go on a crazy run and they make the playoffs this year, cool. But they're just kind of reloading for next year, just a little bit earlier. You're just getting your deal done for next year a little bit earlier. And then I think the same is sort of similar for the Angels. I don't think they're going to do anything crazy. I think there's a chance they end up becoming more sellers. They're selling off maybe Noah Syndergaard. Are they, maybe they're going to cash in on him. The Angels are a big question mark right now.
They should definitely look to trade Syndergaard.
Yeah.
1,000%. They are not in they're not really in competition for the playoffs. Like they obviously anything can happen in baseball. We've seen miraculous comebacks and long win streaks, but like realistically, this team has been not great since the first part of the season. So if you can capitalize, get something for Syndergaard, because you're not signing him back. You're just not for that price. Get something for him before he, enters free agency.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And then at the bottom of the division, you have Oakland. Oakland obviously is going to be selling. They have Montas, Sean Murphy, some decent relievers, some decent position players that can. I mean, obviously everybody is available in Oakland. So again, another team that's going to be playing a big factor in the trade market. Now we're going to work our way over to the National League. We're going to start in the NL East. Again, a very weird division. There's a lot going on, a lot of good teams. Obviously, the Juan Soto news in Washington. Miami's in a weird state as well. But I think it really just comes down to we know the Mets are buying. We know Atlanta's buying. What about the Phillies? Like, what are you doing if you're the Phillies at this point? Because, again, you're probably not going to be first and second in your division. You're pretty much fighting for the second wild card spot. So, what are you doing?
I'm going to buy if I'm the Phillies. I am, because you're right there for
so
the wild
close.
card. Like, you and I were.
They currently hold the second wild card spot, by the way. So
exactly. So, like, we were really high in this Phillies team, and they struggled a little bit out of the gates, but they've kind of picked it up lately. Since the firing of Joe Girardi, I'm buying. Like, I don't know exactly what this Phillies team is going to do, because they have a lot of players, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if they went after a guy like Frankie Montas.
Yeah.
Like, that would be – I don't really know if Castillo fits them as well. I think Montas fits them a little bit better, in my opinion. So, actually, if I'm a Phillies fan, I would love to see them be aggressive and do something.
I think we'll have our trade deadline show next week to give you some names I kind of like for Philadelphia. Elvis Andrews is kind of one of those guys who have a really good year, a good defender. Tommy Pham for the Reds. They need some defense. These guys aren't going to cost much at all, but they're veteran presences. They can come in and help kind of push you over the top. They're not going to break the bank by any means. Maybe they go a little bit bigger and target a guy like Andrew Benintendi, who is a Gold Glove defender in the outfield. But I think we kind of see some veteran defensive first, low strikeout rate guys, high walk rates, that just guys that kind of just know how to win a little bit. Like the guys that have had success in the league before. I think that's kind of the vibe I see from Philadelphia. And whether it works, it works. If it doesn't, you didn't spend too much anyway.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. And then Miami, Miami's future is so bright. It's just not the year. They're obviously going to be selling a little bit. They have a little bit of things to sell if they wanted. Have some relievers. Jesus Aguilar, if they want to come off of him. Maybe Miguel Rojas, John Birdie, some of those kind of guys. Nothing wild to sell, really. But again, better days ahead.
Some pieces that I feel like, some team could maybe get.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they wanted to go buy, what about like an outfielder? Like
they've been in the market for a center fielder. They've wanted their center fielder of the future for years, man.
Yeah, and the Royals are obviously going to be shopping Benintendi. I kind of like Benintendi going to the Marlins.
I think it makes sense if Miami just. I think Miami just might be scared off of a little bit of a move like that because they are decently behind those three teams even next year. You know what I mean? I wouldn't hate it by any means.
I think it's time for the fish to try to start winning again. They've been at the bottom for so long.
I agree. And then obviously that leaves Washington. We just talked about Juan Soto. We came out with a Juan Soto, reaction, some possible landing spots for him, and a separate YouTube video here on the channel. So go check that out if you haven't. But yeah, they got Juan Soto, Josh Bell to move. You got to assume if Soto's traded, Corbin or Strasburg's deal is going to be somewhat altered. That's about it there. That's about it there in Washington.
Maybe Josh Bell.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought I said Josh Bell. But either way, Josh Bell will probably be moved. I feel like at this point, again, trade deadline episode next week, I feel like Josh Bell is just already a Boston Red Sox in my mind. But we'll get there when we get there. And now we're going to move on to the NL Central. The divisional standings, really terrible division this year. It's Milwaukee and St. Louis. That's what it is. Then you got Pittsburgh, Chicago, Cincinnati at the bottom. It's Milwaukee and St. Louis. Yeah, I mean, that's when you play in the division with the Pirates, Cubs, and Reds, they're gonna take advantage of it. How aggressive do you see these two teams being? Simply because their path to a division title in a wild card spot is that much easier playing in the division they're in.
I think if I had to guess, I think the Cardinals are going to be a little more aggressive than the Brewers, because I feel like the Cardinals are used. I don't want to say they're used to winning, but like they can't have another year where they don't make a playoff run, like a deep-ish playoff run. They haven't had one in a while here, and I feel like in that organization, it's championships, honestly.
Yeah.
So I could see them kind of being aggressive here and going to get a starting pitcher or something just to try to match the starting pitching of the Brewers. I mean, the Cardinals pitching hasn't been awful per se, but if they can get another guy in there, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of there with you. The Brewers are weird. They always need an extra bat, but their Brewers farm system is one of the worst in Major League Baseball. So if they want a really crazy bat, it's just not going to happen unless they want to come off with a few good guys they have. There's a move that I want the Brewers to heavily consider. We'll talk about that next episode on the trade deadline one for sure. But again, the rest of the division is going to play a big factor, big, massive factor in the trade deadline. Pittsburgh has a number of players. The Cubs, Wilson Contreras, the best catcher on the market. Some relievers as well. Cincinnati, Luis Castillo. Cincinnati's kind of, hoarding the pitching market this year with Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle. You have Brandon Drury, you have Tommy Pham. They got a lot to give over there. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens with that. We'll move on to the NL West. This, again, a little bit more top-heavy than what we've seen. It really just comes down to, we know the Dodgers are buying. The Padres will always buy as well. Yeah. The tricky one is your favorite team, Matt, the San Francisco Giants. I'm very conflicted on the Giants.
I think the Giants should sell. Because
I don't disagree.
At this point, they are 12.5 games back of the division lead. Yes, they can still make a wild card. Yeah, they can still win the division, honestly. Like I said, crazy things have happened. Realistically, this Giants team is not going to probably do much in the playoffs if they were to even make it. Mm-hmm. I don't see them beating the Dodgers. I don't see them beating the Padres. I don't see them beating the Cardinals. I don't see them beating the Brewers, the Braves, the Mets. The list goes on and on.
They'd be praying to play the NL Central, and still even then.
Exactly. So, like, if you're the Giants, you're looking at this as, okay, we had major success last year, right? You obviously lost in the first round. Coming out this year, you're not a bad team, but you're also not like a great team.
Yeah.
You have some players on that team
that could get you a decent return.
You could get some stuff for. Jock Peterson is a name that I think the Giants should consider moving. Yes, he is starting in the All-Star game, but he signed a 1-year deal with the Giants.
Yeah. I think if you really want to talk about them selling Carlos Rodon, he's going to net you a whole lot as well. And the thing with the Giants, it's tough to sell because they have the history of success there. But they're going to fall off a cliff sooner or later. They've been one of the older teams in the league for so long. And again, they've won because of it. But they've kind of kept that core intact. They've added some people here and there. But they really need to re-euthanize this team. And I don't know if there's a better opportunity to do that than right now. You mentioned Jock Peterson. Carlos Rodon can be moved. Wilmer Flores is having a hell of a year. Like, there's a couple people that can really bolster the youth of your team. And like the Giants window is like, if they did anything, maybe like the next 2 years, maybe, and then you really are relying on the people you have in the farm. I think if you kind of blow it up now a little bit, even just by trading Jock Peterson, because he might not even resign, same thing for Carlos Rodon, you just lengthen your window. Like, it obviously.
Well, if Jock Peterson resigns, you're going to have to pay that man a lot of money.
Yeah, same thing with Rodon.
Outfielder in the All-Star game, like, assuming he doesn't get hurt or anything, like, I don't think the Giants are going to commit that much money to Jock Peterson
and
the next however many
years. If they came out and said Carlos Rodon is available, I mean, him and Luis Castillo are neck and neck. I mean, Carlos Rodon probably has the upper hand and best pitcher on the market. And that immediately is enough to sell in my mind. Like, especially with how everybody's out there desperate for pitching, man. Absolutely desperate. So it's going to be an interesting next few weeks for the San Francisco Giants and for a lot of the league. That's going to wrap up our buyers and sellers edition. Kind of just, again, a midway checkup of the MLB year, like I've hinted at several times throughout this episode. Next week, you will not want to miss our trade deadline predictions. We're going to have literally so many. I'm so excited for it, guys. I've been talking about it for literally weeks now. I'm so pumped for this MLB trade deadline. I have no clue what to expect. We got the Juan Soto bomb dropped us on the other day. I can't wait to see what's next. Maybe it's Carlos Rodon on the move. But again, that's going to wrap up this episode. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week on the TWSN YouTube channel. See you guys.